I'm Clara, and I have a passion for plastic. And tonight I have quite a challenge because it's my plan to convince all of you sitting in this audience to share that plastic for passion with me. And I know what you're thinking. Plastic. Who cares? Right? Well, if there's one thing that I learned about human beings in my humble 23 years of age, it's that we like life simple. We don't necessarily like changing our habits. We actually hate that. And this is precisely why I decided to do the opposite. And I went out and changed my life completely for a month. I decided to live without plastic. That's impossible, was probably the comment that I got the most from people. Clara, you're crazy. This is something that you cannot do. Plastic's everywhere. Well, in my 30 days of living without it, I learned that it's far from being impossible. It's weird, though. So there was a moment that I was trying hard to really avoid all the plastics in my bathroom, right? Because our shampoo doesn't only come bottled in plastic, there's also loads of microplastics floating around and so on. So I looked out for alternatives. In my search, I found that you can use a mix of rye flour and water to make your hair clean, and after that, rinse with vinegar. So I'm standing there in my shower with this glass of smelly apple cider vinegar, and I'm about to pour that over my head. It's a moment, I'm telling you, I do not want to repeat many times in my life. What I also found is that it can be scary if you challenge yourself to live without plastic, because you become aware of how omnipresent that material is to our lives. After 2 weeks of my experiment, I walked into a normal supermarket, right? Not really a scary experience usually, but I was feeling like I'm walking on a landfill. Everything is wrapped in plastic. I could buy probably 5 to 10% of the products they were offering. And that's something we accept as normal, right? Well, I also find, after living without plastic, that it's been surprising. It's been surprising to see how many alternatives already exist for this plastic mess that we usually have. I was still able to eat my cereals in the morning that I bought in a bulk store, and I even went to a music festival and partied for 3 days without having to use a single thing of plastic. And the last thing I learned is that it's exciting. And the excitement and the fun came mainly because I shared what I did. Sharing was something in the beginning that I decided to do from day one on, but it was scary to me. Because I thought people would judge me, criticize me, misunderstand what I was doing. But instead I learned that sharing gave me the power to inspire and to change the people around me. Suddenly I was getting messages from people around the world telling me, Clara, thank you for what you're doing. I finally convinced my flatmates to recycle at home. And my professor that saw a post of mine on Instagram came to me and said, hey, would you mind sharing your recipe for making your own toothpaste so I can teach my children? Those are stories of people that started waking up. They woke up to see what I call 1 billion plastic elephants. Because 1 billion elephants is the volume of all the plastic that we have produced up to today. That's 8.3 billion tons of plastic. 8.3 billion. And we only started producing plastic in the 1950s. And by now it's spread so far that there's already 500 times more plastic particles in our oceans than there's stars in the sky. Imagine that number. 500 times more than the whole universe. That's 51 trillion particles of plastic that are floating around right now. And yes, many of us say, okay, but I'm good, I recycle, right? Well, the reality is that 91% of all the plastics is not recycled. And it ends up everywhere. When researchers went out to a virgin island and digged a hole of 1 meter times 1 meter times 10 centimeters, they found 4,000 pieces of plastic in that sand. And this is an island that has been untouched from humans forever. No one has ever been there before. Well, unfortunately, plastic has not only spread to the most remote corners of our natural environment, it also affects all of us. It's in the air we breathe, the food we consume, and in the water we drink. And as of now, already 83% of tap water all around the world and 93% of bottled water contains microplastics. And I know many of you here might think that drinking bottled water is safe. Well, actually, it contains double the amount of microplastics than tap water. So rethink before you buy the next bottle of plastic-wrapped water, right? To me, plastic comes with a big paradox. Because it's a material that's amazing. It's made to last forever. It will take centuries or thousands of years to ever degrade. And some scientists say that it will only break down to smaller and smaller pieces and never truly disappear. The bad thing here is that 50% of the plastic that we use is single use. It's something that we use for such small instance of minutes or seconds, and then it will be there forever. Now, I hope that by now all of you here have woken up, right? And another thing that I learned about human beings is that in the moment that we wake up and we learn about a problem, there's 3 different ways that we can react to that. Number 1 is we do the ostrich. We take our hand and dig it in the sand, ignore the problem, and continue living as always. The second way is we start pointing fingers. We say, it's the fault of governments, of legislation, of big corporations. They have to change. And please, keep doing this. Because it's important to call those big actors on the global level upon their responsibility. But there's also a third way that you can choose, and that's looking in the mirror. And as you might guess, I chose to go down path 3. And I didn't stop with my plastic experiment. I created an organization called Impact Revolution. And with this project, I've been able to reach thousands of people through a podcast where I talk to CEOs, to entrepreneurs, activists, and artists about ideas of sustainability and impact that I consider worth spreading. I went to conferences to talk to those important people about initiatives they were doing. I've started cleanup hikes in the mountains of Madrid and plogging runs. That is, you go jogging while picking up litter. And we've done circular economy startup days where we helped entrepreneurs launch their own projects that rethink the way that we use our waste. And also in September, I will launch the Traveling Trash Tour, a bike trip that goes from Paris over Belgium, Netherlands, up to Berlin with a bike dragging a mountain of plastic trash behind me. And in every major city that I will pass, there's going to be an event with politicians, with business leaders, and all different stakeholders where we find solutions for our plastic problem. But the main message to you is that you do not need to be as crazy and passionate about plastic as I am. There's simple steps that you can take. Not as complex as myself, very, very simple and easy, that you can implement in your daily life. The next time you walk into a coffee shop, I have a challenge for you. It's something daring. Order your coffee to stay. And take those 2 minutes out of your day to drink that cup while talking to the barista and skip the disposable one that you usually take. In your bathroom, swap your disposable soap and your shampoo for solid ones. No need for vinegar here, just use one that doesn't use a plastic packaging. When you go shopping, finally bring your own bag. And refuse to put those 2 tomatoes in a separate plastic bag, because you might as well just take the sticker, put it on the fruit, and walk with that to the cashier. And if you buy a shirt in a shop, then just put that shirt in your own purse, because you really don't need an extra bag for it, do you? When you go out for a drink, order it without a straw. And I think that tonight I've given all of you enough reasons to never buy a plastic water bottle again. And lastly, I want to advise you to be spontaneous, creative, and to have fun while you do this. Share your experience with the people around you, because that way you can multiply the impact that your little change has in the totality of the world. In those few minutes of my talk, another 1 million of plastic elephants was born. But we're not hopeless here, right? We can change something. Your decisions can become revolutions of impact, because all of us are change makers. By the fact that we live, that we wake up every morning and take some choices, we shape the world we live in. And I want all of you to become proud change makers, proud of what you leave behind in this planet. Thank you.